Mitch was cleaning his rifle when he heard it. Just a low, far-away howl like the wind got stuck in the trees. He ignored it, like anyone would, but something about the way it hung in the air, it was off. You can't shake that feeling when something just ain't right, but Mitch buried it like he always did, because he had to stay in control, always. By the fire, Mitch and Cody had one last laugh before heading out for the night's hunt. It was their thing, you know? Hunt, fire, joke around, except this time Cody wasn't really laughing. He joked about the tradition, but there was tension in his voice. "You hear those howls earlier?" he asked. Mitch just shook his head, brushed it off. "Wolves," he said, trying to sound solid like nothing could shake him. But Cody wasn't convinced, and to be honest, neither was Mitch. That night, Cody couldn't sleep. His eyes were wide open, staring at the stars, like he expected something to drop from the sky and eat him whole. And then it came again. That same howl, low and long, dragging itself out like something not quite human. Cody's whole body stiffened. He shot up, whispering, "Did you hear that?" Mitch grunted. "Wolves," he repeated, but even he was starting to feel that twitch in his gut, fear, but no way was he going to show that. Not to Cody, he had to keep it together. Next day, Cody was jumpy as hell, stepping on every twig, tripping over his own damn feet. "We ain't gonna catch anything if you keep making noise like that," Mitch snapped. But inside, he wasn't mad. He was worried, because Cody was starting to lose it, and when your buddy loses it in the wild, that ain't good for either of you. Still, Mitch kept a lid on it. He'll get over it, he told himself. Then they found the tracks. Human footprints, barefoot, in the snow. That's when Cody really lost it. What the hell, man? What kind of person walks out here barefoot? Mitch wanted to stay calm. Had to stay calm. Probably some crazy loner yin, he said, but even saying it felt like a lie. Inside, he was rattled. Who the hell walks barefoot in the middle of nowhere? That night, the howls got worse. They weren't just coming from one direction anymore. They were all around, surrounding them. Cody was trembling, practically begging to leave, but Mitch's pride wouldn't let him. "It's all in your head," he said, even though his own heart was pounding. But Cody wasn't having it anymore. He snapped, accusing Mitch of trying to prove something, of dragging them into danger just to show how tough he was. For the first time, Mitch felt doubt. Maybe Cody was right. The next morning, their camp was destroyed, gear scattered everywhere, and there, written in blood, was a symbol, something ancient, something that didn't belong in their world. Cody was pale, already halfway out the door. "We're leaving," he said, but Mitch's pride, his stupid, stubborn pride, kept them there. "We'll set up a new camp," he said, but even his voice was shaking now. As they tried to settle in, something started stalking them. Twigs snapping, shadows moving just out of sight. Cody wanted to bolt, but Mitch forced them to stay. He couldn't let it win. Not yet. Then Mitch saw more footprints, fresh, closer. And he knew, deep down, there was no getting out of this. He didn't say a word to Cody, though. Just kept his mouth shut and prepared for whatever was out there. They found an old cabin, falling apart and barely standing. Cody begged to stay inside. Mitch didn't want to, but at this point, it wasn't about choice. It was survival. Inside, they found bones. Human bones picked clean. Cody spiraled, but Mitch, he stayed eerily quiet. Maybe too quiet. He was losing his grip, and Cody knew it. That night, Mitch had a dream about his father. His old man had gone hunting once, years ago, and never came back. In the dream, his father's face twisted, unrecognizable, howling into the night. Mitch woke in a cold sweat, but he didn't tell Cody. What was there to say? In the morning, Cody swore he saw something watching them from the trees. Mitch brushed it off again. But inside, he was starting to believe. Maybe Cody wasn't crazy. Maybe something was really out there. As they packed to leave, they heard it. Slow, heavy footsteps outside the cabin. Cody wanted to run, but Mitch held them back, forcing them to stay hidden. Then Cody saw it. A face through the cracked window, twisted, grotesque, something that shouldn't exist. Cody lost it, fired his rifle wildly, but whatever it was, it vanished. Mitch, shaking, told Cody it was just a trick of the light, but he didn't believe his own words anymore. Cody snapped and ran. Mitch chased after him, desperate to stay in control, but the howls were getting louder, closer. Then Cody fell, twisting his ankle. Mitch reached him, but before they could move, the howls were right on top of them. Figures, half seen, moved in the trees. Cody whispered, "We're dead." Mitch stayed silent, gripping his rifle. When they finally came out of hiding, they found claw marks gouged into the trees around them, deep, unnatural. Cody begged to go back. Mitch refused. They pushed on, but it wasn't the same anymore. Cody didn't listen to Mitch's commands. He was done playing the follower. But Cody was falling apart too. The symbols were everywhere now, carved into rocks, trees, even animals. It was like the forest itself was alive, taunting them. And then they found the deer. Gutted, its inside spread out like a warning, with one of those symbols carved into its hide. Cody threw up. Mitch said nothing. His hands were shaking. Mitch started seeing things. Figures with hollow eyes, watching them from the shadows. He didn't tell Cody, didn't see the point. Cody finally lost it. He turned on Mitch, screaming about how this was all his fault, how Mitch led them into this mess. He pushed Mitch, knocking him to the ground, then stormed off. Mitch followed, but he wasn't the same anymore. The howls, were they even real? Or was it all in their heads? Then Mitch realized it. The howling wasn't from the forest. It was coming from Cody. His face, it was starting to twist, just like in Mitch's dreams, just like his father's. They reached a clearing, but it was a trap. Shadows moved in, closing in. One of them lunged at Cody and Mitch fired, dropping it. It looked human but twisted, its mouth frozen in a scream. Cody's transformation sped up, his face distorted, his voice turned into a growl. Mitch watched, horrified, as Cody became one of them. Mitch ran, left Cody behind. His heart screamed at him, but his legs wouldn't stop. He had to survive. The howls were everywhere now, but Mitch knew. This wasn't the forest. It wasn't creatures. It was people. People who got lost, just like his father. Just like Cody. As Mitch stumbled through the trees, he heard Cody's voice again. Except it wasn't Cody. Not anymore. Mitch turned to see Cody, fully transformed, his face twisted into that same scream. Cody lunged, and Mitch hesitated. He couldn't kill him. Instead, he fired into the air, trying to scare him off. But Cody didn't flinch. Then Mitch felt it. The same thing Cody felt. The howl rising from inside him, his own face starting to twist. He was becoming one of them. In the end, Mitch realized the forest wasn't hunting them. It was reshaping them. The howls weren't a warning. They were the sound of humanity slipping away. Story 2. The thing about cold, it's a silent killer. You never hear it coming, never see it creeping in until it's too late. And up here, in the Alaskan wilderness, it's everywhere. I told the group this from the start. The cold doesn't care if you're tough. It'll kill you just the same. But Matt Daniels, that idiot, just smirked. It's just a little frost, he said, puffing out his chest like a dumb jock trying to impress everyone. You could see it in his eyes. He thought he could handle it. I knew better. We set off, trudging into the snow that stretched for miles like a white void. Matt strutted ahead, pretending he knew what he was doing, throwing glances back at me like he wanted to prove something. I bit my lip, hoping his stupidity wouldn't get us all killed. Last time I led a group through conditions like this, well, I lost my brother. The thought twisted in my chest, and I tried to shove it down. This wasn't the same. This group was different, right? The temperature plummeted without warning, sharp enough to bite through every layer we had on. I saw Matt shiver, his cocky grin slipping for just a second. When I asked if he was okay, he flashed that stupid smile again, pretending like the cold wasn't turning his skin blue. "All good," he said, his voice a little too high. He was lying, and I knew it. But I let it go. Maybe that was my first mistake. By the time we started setting up camp, everyone was jumpy. Then came the figures, just vague shapes out in the distance. Matt noticed them too, though he tried to laugh it off, calling it a snow mirage. But his voice wobbled. I wanted to believe it was just shadows playing tricks on our eyes. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling we weren't alone. That night, the wind carried something with it. Whispers. It sounded like voices, but no one wanted to admit they heard anything. Not even Matt, who always had something to say. He made a joke about it, but his tone was all wrong. We all knew, even if no one spoke it, something was out there, watching, waiting. When the morning came, so did the gut punch. One of our guys was missing. His tracks led out into the snow, stopping abruptly like he'd been plucked right off the ground. I couldn't breathe. It was just like my brother. The snow takes people and doesn't give them back. I saw Matt's face. He was scared now, trying hard not to let it show, but I saw through him. All that swagger, gone. As we pushed further into the wilderness, I caught glimpses of something moving at the edges of my vision. Eyes in the snow. They weren't animals, and they weren't human. Matt confronted me then. Accused me of hiding the truth. Like I told him what to expect. Like I even knew. I shoved him off. Told him to keep moving. We couldn't afford to lose control now. Not with those things out there. We stumbled onto an old research station, buried halfway in snowdrifts. Inside, we found these documents talking about the cold ones. Not legends, not myths. Creatures that hunt anyone who crosses their territory. Human-like, but wrong. Matt started losing it then, panicking, demanding we turn back. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. Turning back felt like failing again, like letting my brother die all over. That night, we heard scratching. It circled our camp, close enough to feel. Matt couldn't handle it. He grabbed an ice axe and stormed outside, but came back empty-handed, shaking. I held myself together for the group. But I knew they were close. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it brought nightmares. I saw my brother, lost in the snow, felt the cold swallowing him whole. When I woke up drenched in sweat, I wondered if it was a dream or something worse. The cold ones weren't just hunting, they were getting inside our heads. The next day, everything fell apart. The creatures were everywhere, lurking just out of reach, tall and gaunt, shadows against the white. Matt snapped. He turned on me, yelling, blaming me for leading them into this. My grip on the group was slipping. They could see my doubt, smell my fear. Then they attacked. Out of nowhere, these things lunged at us. Matt tripped, went down hard, screaming for help. And me? I froze. It was like I was back there watching my brother vanish into the snow all over again, but this time I moved. I grabbed Matt and yanked him to his feet. The others were gone, scattered, lost to the blizzard. It was just me and him now, running for our lives. We found a cabin, barely standing, and barricaded ourselves inside. Matt was losing it, ranting about how this was all my fault. His pride, his desperation to prove himself, it put us here. I wanted to hate him, but all I could feel was guilt. Maybe he was right. Maybe I did lead us straight to hell. We found more notes in the cabin. The cold ones don't just hunt, they pick at your deepest fears. Matt wasn't their target. I was. It was my fear drawing them in. Matt's eyes darted around, panic setting in. He confessed. He brought us deeper into the wilderness on purpose. To prove he wasn't weak. He wanted to impress me, and now we were all paying for it. Before I could process that, they broke through. Matt fought, but they dragged him away, leaving me alone, just like before, just like always. I woke up in the snow, shaking uncontrollably. I didn't know how long I'd been lying there. Matt's screams still echoed in my head. The cold ones were gone, but I knew they'd be back. I started walking, no direction, just moving. The cold was inside me now. I could feel it. The whispers followed louder this time, calling my name. I saw figures, my brother, Matt, but I kept going. They weren't real. They couldn't be real. Then I saw one standing there, watching me. It didn't attack. It didn't have to. I was already its prey. I kept walking. I wasn't going to let the cold take me. Not yet. But deep down, I knew it was too late. It had already started. The cold was inside me, turning me into one of them, and there's no escaping that.